testify. I'm under a gag order, I guess. Right? I can't even testify on that. No, we're going to be appealing the gag order. I'd love to answer that question. It's a very easy question, the easiest question so far. But I'm not allowed to testify because this judge, who's totally conflicted, has me under an unconstitutional gag order. Nobody's ever had that before. And we don't like it, and it's not fair. Other people are allowed to do whatever they want to us, and I'm not allowed, as a presidential candidate, the leading candidate, the Republican Party nominee, and the one who's leading Biden by a lot, I'm not allowed to talk. There's never been any abuse like this before. This conflicted judge ought to get out of this case. He should not be having this case. He gives us nothing. It's such a rigged court. So I'm not allowed to testify because of an unconstitutional gag order. We're appealing the gag order. And let's see what happens. Thank you very much.
And there it is. Trump just admitted that he won't testify at his criminal trial in New York because, as he claims, he's under a gag order. Now, I know that Trump likes to treat his supporters like they are abject morons, but I find it difficult to fathom that even they would believe Trump when he tries to claim that a gag order to prevent him from witness intimidation and jury tampering means that he isn't allowed to testify truthfully at his trial. Of course, that won't stop him from trying anyway, because the guy can't open his mouth without lying. I'm not sure who needs to hear this, but a gag order doesn't prevent you from testifying truthfully, it prevents you from attacking people and endangering the integrity of the trial. Although, I suppose it's telling that Trump can't tell the difference between the two. And look, I say this all half tongue-in-cheek because, let's face it, Donald Trump never had any intention of testifying in this trial. More so, I think his attorneys' heads would have exploded if their client ever made his way onto the stand, because the likelihood of him perjuring himself would be roughly in line with the likelihood of the sun rising in the morning. This whole time, Donald Trump was just looking for some lame excuse to be able to back out of taking the stand, and that's exactly what he found here, by claiming that a gag order to prevent witnesses somehow prevents him from testifying. Give me an absolute break. And that's a point that my Legal Breakdown co-host Glenn Kirshner drove home when I'd asked him previously about the likelihood of Trump taking the witness stand. I've read rumblings online that Trump does want to testify. Of course, you gotta take that all with a grain of salt. What do you presume will happen here?
There's not a chance in hell Donald Trump is going to hit the stand. The reason I say that is twofold. One, Donald Trump has been promising us over and over again that he will take the stand. But Brian, what does history teach us about what happens when Donald Trump promises he's going to testify? He promised he would testify in the Mueller investigation, and he didn't. He promised he would testify in both E. Jean Carroll trials. He testified in neither. And then finally, he said, okay, I'm going to try to take the stand in my New York civil fraud case. And our viewers may remember, he hit the stand. He was on for about 90 seconds. He couldn't even answer questions in a responsive fashion. He was admonished by the judge, and he slunk back to his counsel table. So it really wasn't, a blockbuster performance. There is no way in hell Donald Trump is going to take the stand in this criminal case. And if he takes the stand, he will be destroyed, figuratively disemboweled during cross-examination.
So prosecutors really do have a vested interest in trying to introduce as much of Donald Trump's words as possible, almost as if to bait him into testifying and to contradict what they're saying, because once he's on that stand, then all bets are off, and they can cross-examine him as much as they want. He can't just up and leave whenever he wants to. Is that right?
Absolutely. And these tactical decisions were frankly so much fun for me to puzzle through in each and every trial. But here's the thing. I don't think there's enough bait to put on that line to reel Donald Trump up to the witness stand, because his lawyers, I think, will just quit the case in protest if they have to suffer through Donald Trump incriminating himself on the witness stand in front of the jury.
And of course, this is what Glenn said once his prediction proved spot on. Donald Trump just came out and basically said that he couldn't take the stand to testify because he's being gagged, and therefore silence won't be able to testify in the trial. What's your response to that?
My response to that is Donald Trump is a stone-cold liar all day, every day. Judge Merchan did not tell Donald Trump he can't testify. He said, you can't make statements about the witnesses or the jurors or the court's family members. And Donald Trump steps right to the camera in what I call his hallway lies session at the end of each trial day. and just spouts lies into the public square.
And let me make just one more point about this. Trump isn't fooling anyone in that courtroom. He isn't fooling his attorneys or anyone in the legal community. He isn't fooling the left, because myself and hopefully the rest of us who have platforms will easily call out his lies and can obviously tell the difference between a gag order and truthful testimony. The people he's fooling are his own supporters. Let's be clear, Fox News is not going to fact check Donald Trump on this. And so everyone who is gullible enough to trust Trump will walk away thinking that Trump is being silenced or censored or prevented from being able to exercise his First Amendment rights. That is all straight nonsense. Donald Trump isn't testifying because he knows that he won't be able to lie. And so it isn't surprising in the slightest that as a result of his inability to not lie, he's covering by also lying to his fans. I've said it before and I'll say it again, Donald Trump and Republicans may claim to hate Democrats, but there is no one that they have more contempt for than their own supporters. And of course, following Trump's bullshit excuse as to why he suddenly isn't allowed to testify, he goes on the usual sob story about how he's the victim here. He suggests that he's being muzzled simply because he's the leading candidate for the presidency in 2024. Here's a hint. It wouldn't matter if Donald Trump was the king of the universe. The court has the right to protect the integrity of the trial. And because Donald Trump has proven himself, on roughly 14 occasions now, of not being able to abide by the terms of the gag order, the judge had no choice but to impose it. That's not the judge's fault, it's not the court's fault, it's not Joe Biden's fault, it is Donald Trump's fault, and his alone, that he couldn't control himself long enough to not attack witnesses and members of the jury. If Trump is looking for someone to blame here, he might want to consult a mirror. Consider too, what's the alternative here? That any candidate for office can't be held accountable in any way whatsoever because any effort to do so will be chalked up to election interference? And so as long as you declare your candidacy, you can intimidate witnesses and threaten members of the jury and sick your mob on family members of the judge, and no one can do anything because after all, if they do, then they're interfering with your election. Pretty convenient standard if you just so happen to be Donald Trump, isn't it? And look, I could go on swatting down all of the lies that this guy spews, but I think at this point it's clear. Trump is not only flailing, but outright caving under the pressure. He's not operating from a place of strength, he's operating from a place of extreme weakness, fear, and desperation. He will shrink away from taking the stand because he knows he has no defense, he knows he is incapable of telling the truth, and he knows that while he might be able to dupe the rubes who buy his whole shtick, it is not going to work outside of his cult. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.